Co-planning and data dialogues. This is the way that we've become smarter and stronger working together. This is the way that we've addressed the first question of the WHHW approach. What do we teach? At East Elementary School, we had to start with the what. What are we teaching? Of course, we were always teaching the standards, but not necessarily knew what order, how quickly we should teach them, and with what emphasis, and with what resources and materials. Everybody was doing it in their own way and landing in different places. So we adopted a system of co-planning where it helped us be successful in implementing various of the 7 best practices. Co-planning at East Elementary involved the instructional coach, the principal, and the grade level teachers coming together on a weekly basis to unpack the standards within the units in our curriculum and designed the order and sequence of how we applied the learning targets in the assessments. When we first started co-planning a couple years ago, we initially were just basically unwrapping standards. They weren't being unwrapped into units strategically, they were just being unwrapped. As we got more efficient with our time, we discovered we weren't paying very close attention to the verbs. And when conducting assessment, we realized we were missing the target, sometimes a little and sometimes a lot. Since then, we've learned that the verbs and the standards really determine the rigor of teaching and learning. It's now expected that all learning targets and assessment processes are tightly aligned to the level of proficiency described by the verbs in the standards. We used specific tools and frameworks that helped us to more easily collaborate with each other and others across the district when requested. This helped us to continue to do our work together when we couldn't always be in the same room at the same time. Google tools, such as Google Classroom and others, has been an essential part of our successful collaboration and has provided efficiency with the limited amount of time that we have for co-planning. We've had universal expectations for lesson planning across the school that includes required essential elements of a lesson. These are research-based lesson design elements and include having a learning target, having identified academic and content vocabulary from within the standards, developing a hook or background knowledge or finding prior knowledge about the target. Of course, there's a big section around direct instruction, which is that explicit teaching by the teacher, and then transferring that into guided instruction with a little bit less support to the student, and then of course independent practice where the student exhibits and performs without support. As final essential element is differentiation. Differentiation of instruction and prioritizing academic and content vocabulary continues to be challenging for many of our teachers and an area that will have to continue to work. In between our weekly co-planning times, we also come to the end of units and have assessment processes that provide us a window into how students are performing. And we conduct data dialogues at the beginning and the end of every unit in our curriculum in every content area. When we do this, grade levels are compiling data in their assessment matrices, and then together with the principal and the instructional coach, teachers present their end of unit results and then work through a problem-solving process of analyzing successes and challenges of learning. The next steps or actions generally follows one of 2 paths. If 85% of the students show proficiency with the unit standards, then the focus of the problem solving and instructional adjustment is on a smaller group of students. If less than 85% of the students show proficiency, then the focus of problem solving is on making significant instructional change for the entire grade level or class. A framework for data dialogues was developed and is deeply connected to past staff development around RTI and MTSS processes, answering specific questions that drive the dialogue and helps teachers develop action steps. Follow-up is always scheduled at the end of a data dialogue in order to determine if reteaching or classroom interventions worked to increase proficiency levels. Discussions around connecting to other building-wide systems such as the school-wide intervention services often becomes a topic of discussion should there be repeated patterns of concern with specific students or groups of students. Each year, all individuals involved in co-planning and data dialogues have been uncovering new learning about themselves, their students, and the standards. Before we really unpacked and began the process of co-planning, We realized that we really didn't understand the standards very deeply, and thus our teaching and learning reflected the same thing, more surface and not very deep. And thus, student understanding and learning was the same way. Teachers and principals and instructional coaches feel much more confident today than they did 2 years ago in their shared understanding of the standards.